in his workshop.
In his workshop, we're looking at what it means to be created in God's image, how that informs our identity, purpose, and mission.
We look at how being God's image means we are children of the King and his royal representatives on earth. I'm really looking forward to diving into today's points, Rebecca.
Me too. Today, we'll learn that being God's image means we are priests. I know that probably doesn't resonate with most of you watching. What in the world does it mean to be a priest? Well, we'll show you how meaningful and practical it is.
To find out what it means to be a priest, we must go back to the beginning, when our King formed creation. It became his cosmic temple. God intended to fill the cosmos with his glorious presence, just as he later filled the tabernacle and the temple with his presence.
With creation as the cosmic temple, the Garden of Eden became the first earthly sanctuary, the place where God's presence dwelt. Genesis says, "When the cool evening breezes were blowing, the man and his wife heard the Lord God walking about in the garden." The Hebrew verb for walking about is also used to describe God's presence in the tabernacle. Let me show you. "I will walk among you. I'll be your God, and you will be my people." From this and other verses, we find that God's walking about means that his presence is in a place, and it becomes a sanctuary.
We are building up to something, but I want to lay down one more piece of groundwork.
Please do.
It is the Sabbath. As the crowning act of creation, God's zone of a sacred time. It is like the Holy of Holies. It is a weekly time to come closer into his presence. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel describes Sabbath as a palace in time. Later, this Holy of the Holies in time was translated as a holy space in the inner sanctum of the tabernacle and temple.
So let's bring it all together, shall we? In the beginning, creation was the cosmic temple. The Garden of Eden was the sanctuary, as the Sabbath was the Holy of Holies. But there's only one thing missing.
That's right. What is a temple without priests? Let's start by looking at Genesis. The Lord God placed the man in the Garden of Eden to tend and watch over it. The Hebrew verbs for tend and watch over can also be translated as serve and guard. So Adam was called to ensure the Garden of Eden flourished and to protect it from dangers. We found these same two verbs together later in the Old Testament. They are used only for priests serving in the temple and guarding it.
That is so fascinating. Adam was the first priest with very special and significant duties, but it wasn't too long before he also had a helper. In Genesis, God declared, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a helper who is just right for him." In the beginning, God established and affirmed the equal status of men and women, including in their priestly roles.
Adam and Eve were not the only priests, nor were the Levites when they were commissioned to serve in the tabernacle and the temple. In Exodus, God tells Moses to tell all the Israelites, "You will be my kingdom of priests, my holy nation."
But it doesn't stop there, does it?
No, it does not.
The Apostle Peter wrote that this priestly role was extended to all believers. He wrote, "You are royal priests, a holy nation, God's very own possession. As a result, You can show others the goodness of God, for he called you out of the darkness and into his wonderful light.
So we have covered who the priests are, but there's still more to the story. Tragically, Adam and Eve failed to protect the Garden of Eden from evil. They allowed Satan to enter. This resulted in humanity losing their priestly role.
But all was not completely lost. Jesus came. He accomplished what Adam and Eve failed to do. He fully reflected God's character and made his presence known on earth. He defeated Satan and sin. He made it possible for us to be restored to a right relationship with God and to enjoy being in God's image. And now he's in heaven, mediating for us.
Jesus reversed our failure. It is amazing. Because of Jesus, our role and purpose as priests are restored.
But what does it mean for us today to be in the 21st century and to be priests?
That's an important question. I think it will help to see what Jesus did in his priestly role and whether we can apply it to our lives today. Jesus reflected God and his character. Are we living in a way that reflects our King? Are our lives marked by love, truth, grace, compassion, forgiveness, and integrity? Do our lives inspire others to worship God, whether or not they do in the church?
Jesus was also a protector. He pushed back against evil's encroachment on humanity and creation. He set evil's captives free. Likewise, we can protect others in nature from evil, and we can do it as much as it is within our own power. Sometimes this means direct engagement, like those who actively fight against the child sex trade. Sometimes this means indirect engagement, like supporting those who reverse the effects of evil through evangelism, education, development, therapy, and the like. Sometimes it means intentionally investing in those around you through time, conversations, experiences, and even direct witnessing. We can serve daily as protectors and push back against evil in many ways.
Jesus served with self sacrificing love throughout his ministry and on the cross. We can serve with selfless love in the home, in the office, in the community, and in our various relationships. We can serve so that others are fruitful and flourishing.
Jesus also forgave, and we can too. We can help others experience the forgiveness we have received from Jesus by forgiving them. In this way, we point them to Jesus.
And finally, Jesus mediates for us in heaven. He represents us and our needs to God, and he represents God to us. We can mediate through prayer. We can pray for others and their needs, and we can pray for the wisdom, courage, and opportunity to present God to others.
Reflect, protect, serve, forgive, mediate. In a nutshell, these are some of the ways we are priests of God, made in his image, and it's something we're called and created to do. It isn't just for a few select leaders. It's a special calling for each of us. As always, we can turn to Jesus as our example. He forgives us when we fail. He strengthens us when we have difficult times. He gives us wisdom when we're uncertain. In short, we can turn to him for all we need to be true priests of the King.
Next time, we'll begin looking at loving God with all our heart, soul, and mind. Until then, let's remember our key questions. What is God doing in my life? Do I have the courage to be part of his work? Am I truly willing to join Him in His work of redemption in my life and all around me?